Aspiring tyrant Benjamin Netanyahu recently went on a media blitz with the goal of convincing the world, and especially Americans, that his attempt to turn Israel into a dictatorship is actually nothing more than a minor adjustment to our judicial system. Netanyahu gave no fewer than 22 interviews to American media outlets, including CNN, NBC, ABC, NPR, and more, and spoke with the likes of George Stephanopoulos, Francine Lacqua, Hadley Gamble, Lex Friedman, and others. He lied to all of them. We wanted to put together a video pointing out Netanyahu's lies in these interviews. For example, this lie on ABC.
The president of Israel was in Washington last week, met with President Biden. You have not been invited to the White House. Is that a snub?
I think President Biden I know that President Biden, in the last conversation we had, invited me to the White House in the fall. I think it's in September, but we'll finalize a date.
Well, I know that no invitation to the White House was extended. How do I know? Because the White House said so.
The Israelis said that there was an invitation to meet in the United States. Is that meeting at the White House, as Prime Minister Netanyahu has repeatedly asked for?
They have agreed that they will meet probably before the end of this year, and all the details of the wheres and the whens are still being worked out.
Let me ask you, if you ask someone out and they say, sure, I'll go out with you sometime, somewhere, do you have a date? Or this disinformation on Bloomberg.
You've said that you will seek some broad consensus in your next changes for the judicial. What are those?
It would probably be about the composition of the committee that elects judges.
With the selection of the judges?
Yes.
How they're selected?
Right. That's basically what's left. And because other things, I think we should not legislate.
Doesn't he just love making it sound like some boring old committee? What Netanyahu is actually saying is, I'll just complete the judicial coup and then I'll stop, which is like Putin saying, I'll just conquer Ukraine and then I'll end the war. The problem with refuting Netanyahu's lies is they're countless. He lied in practically each and every answer. The only times he didn't lie was when he was avoiding giving a straight answer to a simple yes or no question.
If Israel's Supreme Court strikes down your legislation, will you abide by their ruling?
I think we have to follow two rules. One is Israeli governments abide by the decisions of the Supreme Court, and at the same time, the Supreme Court respects the basic laws, which are the closest thing we have to a constitution. I think we should keep both principles, and I hope we do.
So you are committing, if the Supreme Court strikes down this legislation, you will abide by that ruling?
Remember what I said. I hope that they don't strike down, because I think we should abide by both rules.
It's not an answer, is it? Also, as part of his non-answer, Netanyahu equated basic laws in Israel to a constitution. He wasn't asked and didn't mention that basic laws in Israel are legislated with a regular majority of 61 in the Israeli parliament, like any other law. So effectively, Netanyahu's government, which holds 64 seats in the Knesset, can legislate any law benefiting him personally or politically, slap the title basic law to make it a holy writ, and prevent the Supreme Court from reviewing it. When the Supreme Court strikes it down, Netanyahu will say the Supreme Court isn't playing by the rules, so I don't have to abide by its decision. Those are just 3 examples. So refuting all of his lies would have made for a really long video. And that's exactly what Netanyahu is counting on. That both the journalists interviewing him and the public watching these interviews don't know enough about what's really happening in Israel to recognize his impudent lies. So here's a challenge, American media. Fact check every single answer he gave. You can start by looking up the website USA for Israeli Democracy, where you'll find comprehensive and reliable information and videos in English. Cross-reference all of them. And then invite me or any one of the hundreds of thousands of Israeli citizens who've been hitting the streets for 7 months fighting to save our democracy. Invite us to respond. Imagine that every Saturday night for 32 weeks, 3 to 4 million Americans gathered on the Washington Mall and demanded justice and accountability for the January 6th takeover. Would you not want to hear what they have to say? That's what's happening in Israel. Interviewing only Netanyahu about the judicial coup is like interviewing only Trump about January 6th. You should hear us, too, the democracy-loving people of Israel. Give us the same time, ask the same questions, ask us anything, and then fact-check us. And let your public decide who's telling the truth about what's happening in Israel right now. And don't worry, my English is just as good as Bibi's.